Hey everybody, how's it going? I appreciate you coming out here on Friday night to hang out with us. Today we've got a redo. So we're going to be bringing Thomas Probst over at Tucson's Finest Leos back on, and then Liz over at Lizzie's Leos. She'll be on as well. Of course, you're going to see my co-host Jenn. She'll be here and taking care of the comments and keep me on track. I can kind of get all over the place. But before we get into it, I wanted to let you guys know a little bit about the topics that we might bring up today. Um, we're going to be giving a little bit of advice for new leopard gecko breeders and talking a little bit about literature and how it might be a little bit, still always good, but maybe a little outdated, might have a few needs. Um, let's see, from there, we'll do a little discussion on navigating a slow market. And I personally am going to be bringing up a little bit about pronunciation of a certain few phrases that I get questions on. So that being said, before we do get started, I want to make something clear to everybody so they kind of know, where we stand on it. Any information that you get from us here, it's not any sort of an authority thing. This isn't the place to go and find out, what you should do because any of us said so. It's simply advice, and of course, it's an attempt to be helpful and to help people plan for things. Other than that, I'm going to go ahead and bring everybody on. All right. Hello, everybody. Thomas, your mic is off.
Hey, hey.
Other than that, everybody is good. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Doing
How are
pretty
you?
good.
Yeah. Liz, you got to remind me, where are you at?
I'm in Utah. Am I frozen on your guys' screen, or can you see me?
No, you're good to go, girl.
Okay.
Good to go.
Cool.
So,
Yeah, I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah.
so you're actually on what's called MST, right? Mountain Standard Time?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Okay. I don't know how in 43 years that I never knew this, but I thought Phoenix we don't change time zones. We don't do the daylight savings thing. So I just assumed naturally that we were just always on MST, and I never once thought about it again. But I
Yeah.
told everybody out there when I was advertising that we'd be on at 5 o'clock MST, which was an hour ago. So hopefully anybody watches the show. I did kind of throw some updates out there to let people know that I made a mistake. But yeah, guys, sorry about that. We are on Phoenix time. That's what it's called. I looked it up. So,
That's so funny.
it's 5 o'clock in Phoenix now. It's 6 o'clock MST?
Yep.
Oh, super. Yeah, that was a huge one. How you doing, Thomas?
Doing pretty good, man. What about you?
I'm good, man. You're in the same time zone as me, so at least I screwed up for the both of us, right?
Right?
Jenn, you doing all right?
Yep, I'm doing good.
Oh, you got your AirPods in, huh?
I do. That way
Yeah,
you
they're
can hear
working.
me.
Just so you know. Yeah, I know. You got that mic working. So, to start things off and just to kind of lighten things up a little bit, what I wanted to do was go over 3 pronunciation words. And I guess the only way to really do that is to type them in. And I know Jenn knows how to add them to the screen. So I'll have her do that. So we'll all take turns saying that word there
Oh,
as
no.
soon as it loads. So there's one. I don't know what's going on here, but and see if people even know what these words are, I guess you could say. So, but yeah, there's one. So Liz, let's make her go first.
Oh, no.
All right. So do you know that word or phrase?
I probably couldn't say it, no. I'm like super dyslexic and awful at pronouncing things.
So that says green race car to you. Okay, so
Right.
let's see. Thomas, do you know that phrase, that word?
I do, but it's spelled incorrectly. It should be hemipenal bulges, not bunges.
So, according to books and things like that, it's actually called bunges. No, that's my correction. You're right. I fat fingered it. Then listed it. So hemipenal bulges is how you would say that. Does anybody disagree with me on that pronunciation?
Mm-mm.
No.
Okay, Jen, how would you say that word?
Same way. Hemipenal bunches.
All right,
Just
so
like
this
that.
word-
No, I would say bulges.
all right, so here is the next word. I'm double checking my spelling. I'm double checking the
Oh.
spelling. Let's go ahead and show that one.
All right.
So, Thomas, what do you got?
You blefferous.
Jen, do you agree, disagree?
I agree.
Liz?
Yeah, I'm gonna agree because I never knew how to pronounce it before. So
Yeah. I've heard Eubal Ferris a bunch. He's right. It's eublepharus. That's actually how you say that word. So I
I
wanted to
probably
throw
would have
this up
said
here.
Yubel.
Eubal. Yeah. No, initially that's what I thought I was reading, but let's see. There's one more, and this one may not even be. Let's see if it loads. That one may not even be something that people know what it is, but Liz,
Skin
you want to try it, or you want
tubercles.
Let's go first?
I tried skin tubercles. Yeah,
Very
it's
close.
embarrassing
Tubercles.
myself. It's fine.
Tubercles.
You
Yeah.
should make Jen go before Thomas. What do you got, Jen?
I was going to say skin tubercles, but you like to make fun of the things that I say and how I say things.
Yep.
So you know what I can say
Yep.
about that, Joe.
Yeah, Gage Boy has a slang phrase that he wanted to throw out there. They're called bumps.
Bumps.
So yeah, they're the bumps on the gecko's back. Thomas, how do you say that?
Tubercles.
Yeah, correct. That is how you say it. All right, this word.
I have one for you.
Yeah.
I got one for you. Hold on. I'm going to send it into the group chat.
All right, we'll post it.
I could have spelled it wrong, so double check the spelling, but
You got it.
right.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. We'll throw this one in there. Let me get back to the comments. Jen, you'll have to throw this up. Let's see if it goes. So since you put it out there, I'll try to say it first. I'm going to say iridophores. How close am I? I got it? Anybody say it differently? Anybody say it?
No.
I really didn't know how to say that word. I was like, what the hell? Okay, here's a
Yeah.
word we're going to throw up on the screen. It has to do with the leopard gecko behavior and just me wanting to use this moment to fix something in America.
Hey, I could say that.
Don't say
Me
it
too.
wrong. I'm coming after you if you do.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
The slang
See it?
for it is Joe.
Yeah, go ahead, Liz. It's all you.
I mean, it's mischievous, right?
Mm-mm.
No?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Oh,
That word is mischievous and often pronounced as
mischievous.
mischievous.
Oh,
I
okay.
would
A
have
lot
said
of
the
people
same
will say,
thing.
well, that is an accent, and it is not an accent. It's a mispronunciation. This one is a word that I got Jen on the other day, and it has to do with leopard geckos somehow. Go ahead and
Somehow.
post that one, Jen. Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
that's okay. Let's go. All right, Jen, say that word. You can do it. Who can say that word? Who can say that word?
Realtor.
I'm done.
It has to do
I'm
with
done
their
embarrassing
hides.
myself.
It's where it has to do with their hides.
You see what he
Realtor?
does to me?
Remind yourself that there's no I in there.
There
Oh,
you go. There
It's
you go.
realtor. But do you see what he does to
Realtor.
me,
realtor.
guys? Do you see what he does to me?
Yeah, a lot of everybody I talk to,
Yeah.
they're like my realtor, and I'm like, do they work in realty? Sorry, I said that wrong.
Realtor.
Reality. So it's one of those things where So whenever I'm thinking of words that are often mispronounced, those are the two words I think of. But yeah, skin tubercles is how I understand to pronounce that. The bumps on the back, and then let's see, you got hemipenal bulges, not bunges. That's there's an N down and to the left, but right next to the L on my keyboard. And then eublepharus. That's a big one. I hear that mispronounced all the time, so I just kind of wanted to go over it. If anybody disagrees, reach out, let me know. Hey, I know a guy, and this is how he told me to say it. So I wanted to do that with you guys. That being said, I wanted to go over to our first topic, which is advice for new breeders. This is one that Thomas brought up to me more than a month back. We were going to go over it initially, but obviously I was having technical difficulties, so we're good now. What sort of advice would each person here give to a new breeder that's going to be coming onto the hobby, and if they're going to want to take care of animals, any reptiles really, but specifically leopard geckos here?
Okay,
You
Thomas first.
I was
somebody.
like, who's
I
going
can go.
first?
I was just kind of waiting.
Yeah.
I guess if I'm going to start it off, I would say my biggest advice to people is invest in high quality animals. And, you know, a lot of people may think, well, what does that mean, right? The most expensive, like, they might think high quality, meaning Black Knights or Cypher or something like that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that. So a good thing to keep in mind when purchasing animals is, look at the structure of the animal. Make sure, they have a proper tail length. Make sure they don't have wrinkled eyelids. Make sure, they don't have really pointy elbows, things like that. I think structure is one of those things that a lot of people that are new in the hobby really overlook. And it's something that's important because later on down the road, those same genetics and features are what's getting passed down to your offspring. And at the end of the day, you want to be producing the best animals as possible within your means. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, quick question about that then. It's how would you say that pertains to buying something that's in its infancy stage? It's a brand new hatchling. Maybe it's less than 20 grams. It's probably not where it's going to be. Would that affect any of those things? Like you might not see certain things.
It definitely can, and I think what it is a lot of people not necessarily purposely overlook it, but overlook certain things because the animal's small, right? Like, so for example, you know, I've hatched out a couple babies that have had like slight overbites or underbites, right?
Yep.
And I've also hatched out a couple that have like ever so slight kinks in their tails, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I always discount those animals to people because the way I see it, as a breeder, just like I feel the rest of you would be, is, we want nothing but perfect specimens in our collection, right? And not that that means a gecko with a slightly crooked tail is bad, or ever so slight like overbite is going to be like an unhealthy or a bad gecko. It just means as breeders, it's our job to provide the community and other breeders with the best animals that we can. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, it's your we're like the AKC dog breeders versus the dog pound. You know what I mean? Which would be like
Okay.
Petco, PetSmart.
Yeah.
And not that either one is bad. All animals deserve a home and all animals deserve love. But like I said, at the end of the day, I feel like it's our responsibility to make sure that we are producing those top tier animals and giving people that option to come to us for that higher quality level.
Okay. So disclose something basically. Yeah, I like the idea of that, and I gotta. So one of the things that I know is controversial is like tail kinks. Everybody lists that slight tail kink is what the phrase you hear. I almost feel like it should be like a hashtag. Um, Hashtag slight tail kink. But no, I feel like that has to do with small temperature fluctuations and just being in an egg. I don't really feel like, oh, this animal has a tail kink, it's genetic. And I know that there's people who disagree, and that's perfectly fine. It's just one of those where I see it and I'm like, I kind of think like, who cares? If it's a short tail, totally different scenario. But I don't know, tail kink is not something that I've ever really worried about. What do you guys think about that one?
I mean, I'm not too worried about like a tail kink. I guess it depends on like how bad the kink is, right? And especially if it's like a female. I've been told before that it can put pressure like when they are laying eggs on the tail. So I'm not sure
Yeah.
like how that would affect depending on like the tail kink. But if it's just the tip, then I wouldn't be too worried about it.
Okay. Thomas?
You know, I definitely can agree that 99% of it can happen from temperature fluctuations. And there's other factors that we have to remember too. Supplementation, you know what I mean, is a huge thing.
And you think that
Low
might do
vitamin.
it, huh?
What was that?
You think supplementation to the mom might cause a tail kink?
Oh, 100%. 100%. So there was a year that I was breeding, and I want to say 5 babies came out with wrinkled eyelids, right? And at
Yeah.
that time, I wasn't supplementing vitamin A the way that I should have been, like I am now.
Yeah.
And I was using same incubator setup, so same type of temp fluctuations, everything. And the following year, after adjusting my supplementation regimen, none of the babies had wrinkled eyelids, and all of them came out perfect. You know what I mean? So I think supplementation can be a key factor in it. Like I said, temperature, and I do think genetics can play a factor in it as well, because I've seen animals that are less like less common in captivity than leopard geckos, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That have had kink tails, and granted, yes, it could have been a result of temperature fluctuation, but it also could have been genetic from being closely related to something else, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
Yeah.
another thing that we have to remember too is when we are buying, there are a lot of us, like you, me, Liz, Jen, all of us. I know we keep very detailed and strict record keeping, but we have to remember a lot of people don't. And there are a lot of people out there that will sell something that was bred to the mother and then to the brother and then back to the father and to the sister. They don't care about diversifying lineage. And at some point, those genetic issues do catch up to the offspring. So I think it can be looked at from all aspects. I think it's just important that we keep an open mind about it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So maybe for a little small advice for a new breeder, would kind of be like maybe babies are not for you. Something where it's a little bit more established. You don't have to worry about it being so small that you accidentally, I'm unalive it. I don't know like what you're allowed to say on YouTube, but and also you can see its body formation, whether or not it has MBD or metabolic bone disease, tail kinks that are more prominent as adults, things like that. Maybe as new breeders, like your first round, maybe those consider getting adults. Something that's almost ready to breed, or 35
Well,
days.
and one thing that I would like to add to it that I've just experienced in my time as a breeder and as a leopard gecko keeper back in the day, and I'm not going to say where it was from or who or anything, because I'm not playing a blame game or anything like that. But I bought a pretty decent Black Knight group, and I ended up selling all of it. One, because it didn't produce for me, and two, because one of the animals during the time that she was laying eggs, all of them ended up molding and going bad, but she lost a substantial amount of weight, right? This
Yeah.
animal at a normal weight didn't show any tail kinking, but once she lost weight from laying eggs, her tail was like a zigzag, you know what I mean? And it was really disheartening to see that. So she ended up not being something that I wanted to work with in the future, because like I was saying, structure is important to me, and I want to make sure that I'm offering my customers the best type of animals and the best look possible.
I gotcha. Excuse me. That makes a lot of sense. Liz, when you were first coming into the hobby, just as I want you to try to remember back then when you were, new and inexperienced, and like what kind of things did you not think about, and that you wish you had thought about maybe now.
Oh man, honestly, probably one of the biggest things would be like a racking system, right? Because I didn't realize that was something I was going to really get into at first. And I had tons of tanks all around my house. And then I had to invest in the racking systems. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I
cool.
can hear you perfectly.
And I feel like a lot of people don't like take into consideration like space too. So when I had all these tanks all over my house, I didn't have like a lot of space. And then once I got a rack, then I was like, oh wow, this takes up like the amount of space as like one tank did. And that helped. And I also really researched the animal before I was like, okay, I'm gonna bring this animal home, because I wanted to make sure I was gonna care for it properly and give it a good life. Because at first, my first gecko was a pet quality gecko, and then I fell in love with them and kind of just went from there.
Yeah. No, that's smart. The right amount of space is perfect. I feel like we get a lot of so there's a difference to me between breeders and keepers.
Mhm.
That's how I just distinguish when I'm talking about them, because breeders are keepers, but keepers are not breeders. And
Right.
so if you keep animals, you keep them in an enclosure, they're a pet, you have a really nice petting system. And I'm not saying you can't call yourself a keeper. All I'm saying is, like, I'm going to refer to you as a keeper if you don't probably have a setup that looks like mine. So um, there's a lot of controversy there where they talk about, like, oh, you guys keep these things in racks. It's if they look awful or they are awful, or and to something like that. I just remind them to look at the areas where the animal comes from, because we have the western banded geckos here in Arizona. Thomas knows exactly what I'm talking about. And I can go outside right now, and if I walk towards like the neighborhood outskirt, I can pick up any of the plastic water mains and look inside, and that's where they live. I can pick up 7 of them right now. Deworm them, take them to the vet, and then put them on Morph Market. But I don't. That being said, they're Western Bandeds are a cousin to the Leos, and they're communal. They live together. But probably under some stress. But that's not my point. My point is that the water mains are small, so they choose to be in some place that's small with their backs up against the wall or underneath some of a dirt like hill, and they want to be in something tiny so that they can control their environment. It's not wide open and they don't know what's in there with them. Typically when you open it up, you'll just see it's almost like they hit paradise. It's a tiny little communal thing, and they have roaches everywhere, or they'll have like I don't know, roly polies. I don't know what else to call those. I know there's a word for it, but
Isopods.
isopods, roly polies. But yeah, so those will be in there. I've seen crickets in there, and then there's like usually one male and maybe a couple females in there, and they're no bigger than that right there. So if my rack system is I can't even fit my hands on the screen, you know what I mean? Like if my tubs are that big, I'm kind of providing more, to your point, Liz, more room for them to move around. And I don't even know necessarily that they like the room that I'm giving them. So what's to say that they love all that extra space in a tank if it doesn't have tons of hides, right?
Right.
So, but anyway, that's just my thought on that. Um, I got a question for you guys. Um, how important would you say it is to know the type of animal that you're looking to keep? If you're going to be a new breeder, if you're going to do this, how important is it to know the type of animal that you're going to be keeping for whatever length of time before you start breeding? Thomas. Sorry,
Um,
I get to call on somebody. I just
it really, I mean, it really just depends. So, like, with me, for example, that's kind of a hard question because I'm I'm in the field a little bit more than just leopard geckos, right? I have the pet store, and then I have all the other species that I keep here at home. And thankfully, a lot of the stuff I kind of keep goes hand in hand with each other, right? So, like right now, I'm sitting in my cold room, and it's dedicated to species that require like that temperature zone. You know what I mean? Um, but I think research is very important. It's not something like, for example, even though we're just talking about leopard geckos, I wouldn't recommend someone going and getting, say, like a monitor lizard, right? and deciding, all right, I bought a baby Nile monitor for $60 because it was cheap, it's cool. I'm gonna get a second one and I'm gonna breed them, right? It's not as simple as that. There definitely needs to be some research done for sure. And when I was a little kid, that was when I started this. So it was very passion driven. And I went to Petco, got my first leopard gecko, and I took home the little care guide that they give you. But I had already been researching them for about a week before because I was really excited. I knew what I wanted, you know what I mean? I had it all set in my head and everything. And the care guide that they gave me wasn't exactly accurate, right? So I got home, I got my gecko set up, and then I hit YouTube, and I was on YouTube for hour after hour after hour, just watching videos from Matt Baronic, David's Fine Geckos, all these people that were breeding very heavily back then and posting, and just kind of looking at different things that they did and seeing how I could do it for myself, right? So, like, for example, Ron Tremper back in the day, he used to use the meat, like the little styrofoam trays that like steak or chicken comes in. He used to wash those and use them as hides. So 10-year-old Thomas, I used to get them when my mom would go to the grocery store. I'd rinse them out, and I would do the same thing, and that's what I used as hides as well. You know what I mean? So I do think it's very important to research whatever you're going to breed, because not only is it going to give you tips, tricks, and different advice and resources towards that animal, but it may give you a different perspective. And even if you're not necessarily interested in breeding right away, that research could spark that interest.
I agree with that actually. And how lucky would you say it is that we actually have YouTube to run to and look at videos from, really awesome breeders that took the time to list videos that would just live throughout the ages, like you mentioned, Matt.
Can't hear you.
Oh,
I can't hear you, Joe.
Sorry. I had muted the mic so I don't interrupt you. No, looking at what you said here, how important it is that you guys have YouTube and that we have YouTube to look into things. I know you mentioned Matt, and his YouTube has been one of the most instrumental things that, because if you need an answer really quick, you know right where to go, and that he took the time to make that a thing that's permanent on, social media or YouTube for us to go look at is really neat. The only thing I'd say is, you mentioned also Ron Tremper. Imagine him and, like me back in the day, because I predate the internet. I was a teenager before the internet existed, kind of like Jen. Um,
Thanks for that, Joe. But yes, kind of
sorry,
like
Jen.
Jen.
So, YouTube wasn't, we did encyclopedias and libraries, Rolodexes. So Ron, when he first
Sadly.
got into this, I'm sure there had to have been a ton of mistakes, a ton of trial and error, and just like, hey, this batch over here I'm keeping like this, they didn't really do well, and I tried this, and he probably had some outlandish breeding practices, just because there wasn't all this information out there, basically because. Yeah, I mean, so it's a good point that you brought up YouTube. I actually highly recommend people get on there and start looking around before they choose to grow. Um, Liz, what kind of a daily timeline would you say that you offer animals if you have 10 or more? What kind of a timeline do you think for new breeders that they should really be ready to spend?
Ooh, like spend on like taking care of their animals every day, like in
Yeah,
that
yeah. Just
aspect.
if you've got 10 or more breeders, 10 to 20, we'll say. What kind of a
Okay.
timeline would you say a new breeder could expect?
I mean, I guess it kind of depends on like what you're doing, right? Because I mean, if I'm cleaning out my gecko totes, that definitely takes me a couple hours, and then feeding and watering them. But I would say just basic like maintenance, like making sure they have like fresh water and you're feeding them and checking on them and making sure everyone's doing okay. I mean, I spend probably like an hour, sometimes 2 hours, but I definitely have up to like 100 leopard geckos. So I spend a lot more time.
Yeah.
But I
Would you
feel
say
like an
that's
hour just to go make sure everyone's okay, check on them, feed and water them real fast. I think that's probably a good amount of time.
Like
But
daily, or would
sometimes,
you say every other day, or?
um, I mean, I check on my animals daily because I'm kind of I don't know, a neat freak, and I want to make sure everyone's okay, and I check their
Okay.
temperatures and everything. But
So
I
you
would
probably like
say,
what you're doing, I guess.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes I spend like 3 to 4 hours doing everything in there, but that's like more like once a week. But just basic maintenance, I would say probably maybe like an hour, like every other day.
Yeah. That's actually one of those things that just like knowing Jen as well as I do as a friend, she will get lost in her room and just come out sometime when she should have been in bed hours ago. And
Like
what would
one
you
o'clock in the
say
morning, my time.
for the amount of like it'll be 10 o'clock here and she'll be like, "Hey, a quick question." And I'm like, "It's got to be like 1 o'clock where she's at. What the hell is she doing?"
I'm 3 hours ahead of you. So, yes,
Yeah, but
I do get
when you
lost.
love, when you love what
Mhm.
you're doing, I guess you just want to be surrounded by it.
Mhm.
So I put together some stuff that I wanted to go over, and so I wanted to throw like it's a whole list of things, and it's just basically my way of trying to answer this question as quickly as I can without taking too much of the time myself. But if you're going to be a new breeder, instead of me giving you advice, I would just tell you to watch this video and ask yourself a couple of questions. One of them is, how many reptiles are you planning to have and what kind? Are you going to breed them and where are they going to live? Where are you going to get the food for the amount of animals that you're going to have and can you afford it? Um, do you know anything about metabolic bone disease and how to prevent it? Uh, where are you going to keep them? So you got your rack system. Where's it going? Do you live with somebody else? Are they going to be okay with it? What is the average cost of a reptile rack? It's up there.
Mhm.
You need feeder dishes. You can go cheap on them, but you still have to acquire these things. Supplements. You cannot keep animals without supplements. So that's not something that's up for debate. We all know that. You have to supplement them because you've taken them out of their natural environment. Where are you getting your advice? That is a huge one. There is a lot of really, really bad advice in this hobby, and it's all out there and it's all over the internet. So, who are you talking to? And have you double checked on whether or not this person is jobber quality advice? Meaning it's just a numbers game to them and, they don't really give a shit about animals? Or is it more of a, hey, I'm almost positive that what I'm hearing is accurate and this is what I should be doing? Check the controversy. Check on whether or not quality breeders offer the same advice as whoever you're talking about. Ask three people, what do you think about this guy? And if they tell you something bad about me three in a row, don't listen to me. When I tell you things, just in one ear and out the other and stop paying attention. Um, yeah, so vet the person that you get advice from. Are you going to sell the animals? Does that cost money? What will How are you going to be keeping records? Because if you're not going to keep records, I'm certainly probably not going to talk to you about purchasing. And that probably goes the same for Thomas and Liz and Jen and a lot of others. Let's see. Are you going to focus on morphs or genetics? And do you know the difference? Reptile expos, are they in your budget? Do you have enough time to be a part of that? Or are you going to be able to have enough come out of just like, an online store like Morph Market to where you don't have to do it? Which I've thought so far that I could, but so far no. Let's see. Could specific associations prevent you from selling animals in general? That's a good one. Make sure you vet the people
Mhm.
you talk to and that you put in front of your, name. Your hobby handle. Do you have one? And how much money is that going to cost you to, get stickers, get it out there, get people interested in you, and then once you have it, how important is it to you to keep it clean? I know, I'm not trying to rip off of whatever, Thomas, but I know like you fight really hard to keep your hobby handle and your name and your logo extremely squeaky clean. And anytime that it's not, I see the how angry and how like personally you take it, and with reason. It costs money, right?
Yep.
So, and the last one is, if you've applied to yourself to all of these advices or questions, how much of your money did I just spend? And so, if you were to say, you know what, I'm going to do the majority of what Joe just said, what kind of money did you just spend? And yeah, so that's just one of those things that I kind of wrote that down for that. Going into that, does anybody have anything that they wanted to add to any of that that maybe I didn't touch on? Let's spend some more money for the the average new breeder.
So I got a good one. I think it's extremely important, and I think this is something that gets overlooked. But putting electrical into your budget, having dedicated circuits to run these racks and everything too, because you got to remember when you're bringing heat sources into your home, it's a fire hazard at that point. So, you have to not only think about your family, your pets, the animals, everything. And, it may cost $1,500, but that $1,500 could save you 150,000 or things that are priceless, such as lives. So that's something to always consider. And, even if you don't need to run dedicated circuits, at least have an electrician come out, test everything, and tell you, yeah, you're running everything under a safe load. If you go above this, we need to change this. You know what I mean? So that way that you know that your house is safe or wherever you're doing this out of.
I want to add to that, Thomas, just because I worked for an electrical company. So extension cords are a big cause of fires. So placement of your racks, I think, is important, and to make sure you have enough protection there. So whether it's surge protectors or whatever the case, but limit your extension cord use. Just
That's a
wanted to
really
add
good
that in.
point.
Seen a lot of fires from them. Yeah.
I'm glad you actually brought that up, Jen. I was going to switch over to here really quick, just to kind of go over what Thomas is saying. Do you know what volts versus amps versus watts are? And that your electric heat tape brings in watts. And when are you going to overload a breaker? There have been a lot of really high end and up there, just knowledgeable breeders that I know of that have had fires. And those fires are devastating. They take projects. Um, they take projects out quicker than diseases. So you really need to figure out how much you're supposed to put on a dedicated circuit. And the electrician idea, Thomas, that was really good. I like that. To speak to what Thomas just said, I had an electrician out today. I know how to check my own wattage. I have a wattage tester, and I plug everything into it. I calculate it down. I know exactly what a 15 amp breaker can hold and whether or not I have 12 or 14 gauge wire. But if you don't know those things or understand what I'm saying right now, it's a huge deal. And so, yeah, Thomas is absolutely right about that. But yeah, a wattage tester is good. It'll tell you what your rack actually throws out. And your electric bill is going to go up. And so is your in Arizona, at least your cooling bill, because it gets hotter in the house, and you want the rack to be warmer in the back only on belly heat for leopard geckos, but your house is going to heat up as well, so you're going to have to cool it, right?
Yeah.
That's one of our struggles. That's all I really have right now for advice for new breeders. If there's anybody else that's got any, I mean, right now is the time to let us have it. Thank you for that last one. Um, who's our most recent breeder here? Would you say?
Probably me.
Probably you. What year would you
Yeah.
say you went in?
I want to say my first year was 20. Oh gosh, let me think about that. 2022, I'm pretty sure. So this is my third season.
So no, you're not then. I would be the newest.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's the newest leopard gecko breeder, but she's done bugs for a long time, right?
oh,
Is it
cool.
Yeah. And I've had leopard geckos as pets too.
Oh, yeah.
So way back when. So experience there, but yes,
Yeah.
definitely love my bugs.
One of the mistakes I know I made was overhead lighting. Anybody else want to talk about a mistake maybe that they made when they became a new breeder?
I will.
Yep.
So just vetting people. That was the biggest mistake I made in the beginning. Is really looking at who I was investing in and what I was investing in. So I think that's really important because I think, Joanna, you and I've had these conversations. If you jump in and you do what I did and you buy from maybe somebody that isn't as ethical and trustworthy as you thought they might be because you didn't do your research, that could easily pull somebody out of the hobby that could be a great, asset to us all as a community. So definitely
Yeah.
vet your people.
When
Yeah.
I
You'll
first, oh,
okay.
sorry.
You're good.
When I first started breeding, I had like a local friend that was like, "Hey, you should get in touch with this leopard gecko breeder. Like, he's pretty big in the community." And I've kind of told you guys, like, it was Chad Ramsey, so Ramsey's Reptiles, and he lives here in Utah too. So I just kind of befriended him, and I asked him so many questions about everything. So I feel like I was very lucky in that aspect. But that's something that I would maybe say to like some new breeders is like maybe look on like Instagram and find like breeders that like have a good name for themselves and ask them questions. And I feel like most breeders that are like really understanding and know their stuff aren't going to like have a hard time answering those questions for you and are going to be willing to kind of like mentor you a little bit and guide you. And that's something that definitely helped me a lot in the beginning.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Thomas, you got anything that when you were new at everything that you kind of wish you knew ahead of time, or
You know, I wouldn't say necessarily when I was new making mistakes because I started this when I was 10 years old.
Mhm.
So for me at the time, it was all trial and error. And I'm honestly grateful for everything that I kind of learned and experienced because I feel like it kind of made me the breeder that I am today. And I think it's part of why I'm so good with working with animals and at what I do. But I will say, something not necessarily like I said when I started, but as I got more invested into it, I definitely initially invested into animals that were my passion project, right? Like my clowns, things like that. But then, I also caught myself investing into some things that were trends, right? And, one thing that I learned from that is it's really important to invest in things you like because when the trends are no longer trending, are you still going to like it? You know what I mean? And if you don't like it, you're not passionate about working with it. And that kind of, it goes like, it relates to your customers, right? So, like for me, for example, when I'm talking about a clown, you can see the excitement, you hear it in my voice, you see it in my eyes, and when I'm presenting the animal to a customer, when I'm talking about it, things like that, right? But, rainwater, for example, and this isn't me hating on rainwater, but it's not something that I never really found an interest in, never caught my eye, and it wasn't, I have one of them in my collection, right? And it's one of those things that yeah, I can definitely talk about it. I'm knowledgeable on the gene and everything, but my passion isn't going to be there for that animal and describing the lineage and the genetics and the way it looks like it would be for clowns, right? Or for something else that I really appreciate, like Cypher or Black Knight or things like that. So I do think that, it's important to buy animals and invest in animals and breed animals that you like because it's, as at the end of the day, yes, this somewhat does turn into a job for us because we're caring for these animals, we're putting money into it, right? It becomes business at some point. But it's also important for us to be having fun with this because we all started as hobbyists and keepers before we were breeders, right? And if we're not having fun, then that passion's eventually going to start to die down, and it reflects on your animals, it reflects to your customers, and just overall, the people that follow you and support you, they're going to see that your passion is starting to decline, right?
Yeah, no, I can agree with that, man. That is, that's actually to me one of the most important things. There's quite a few people who if you're one of the breeders who buys really expensive and very good looking animals, um, they look down on it. And I think that's with reason and good reason, because the kind of people who look into that and they see it a certain way, they've put 10 or more years into genetics and stuff like that. But I don't think that even like the way that they see it applies to everybody, because like that, I got to say that's something that I definitely did, but I got really good advice. Everybody knows who John Scarborough is, and he's the
Mm,
one that said, "Hey, man, like don't focus on genetics, learn genetics while you focus on morph." And so morphs were more important to me, and so when I was going to invest my money, and it's my money. That's where I went with it. But I think, like Thomas is saying, even the people that I know, they don't, love when certain breeders hop out there and they grab just a couple of really, really great looking animals, breed them, and then try to sell them at high end prices. I don't think they apply it to everybody. I think that there's like sort of a line they draw there, and they just kind of look into the person, and they draw up an opinion about them individually. So it's not something people have to worry about. But uh, Jen, how are the comments doing? We've got quite a few.
Comments are good. I just wanted to point out something that Gage Boy had pointed out. So, not every baby's going to make it, right? And
Okay.
then vet money. So I think that's important. Are you going to be able to take them to the vet? And it's definitely costly. I've taken one to the vet for a tail, and it was a hefty little vet bill, but are you willing to do that? So I thought that was a good one that he pointed out, and not every baby is going to make it. Um, and then we just had another question that I really didn't want for us to get too far and pass over, but we had a question about loose skin, and how we feel about loose skins.
I don't feel like I'm a great resource for that. I don't love it. I think it looks tacky on an animal, and I think that when I see it, I'm doing something wrong. I know that Samantha, when she sees it, she will usually focus on that animal's diet a little more. And then we have our swimming pools. We haven't done them in a minute because of our moves, but our swimming pools are climbing sections where they can work off some of that extra fat. Um, I don't think it's a bad idea that they're a little bit overweight, just because it does hurt breeding season. But I don't know, Thomas. What do you think about loose skin on an animal? I don't really have a good opinion on that, I guess.
Well, so that's kind of a tough one because I know what you mean as far as the weight thing goes, but I think what Yvette was asking is actually like the defect of loose skin. So I don't know if you've ever seen it before in a hatchling. You probably haven't because it's something you would notice, I'm sure, on a breeder. But usually around the neck and under the chin, you'll notice a lot of extra wrinkling and sagginess to the
Yeah,
skin, and it is something that breeders, like for example, I know Steve Sykes and other people will consider it a defect. Like Derek said, it's extra skin, and it's not necessarily from them like previously being obese. It's more so just
yeah,
extra skin. I don't even really know how to describe it, honestly. I had a raptor. I ended up selling him, but I had a raptor that had a lot of loose skin that was like that, and it ended up being what I decided. No, I could entirely be wrong, but it ended up, like I said, just what I decided being genetic. Because every single one of the babies that it produced had that really saggy, loose neck, even as hatchlings. And I ended up selling all of those at my pet store for $49.99. You know what I mean? Just
yeah.
because I wasn't comfortable.
I gotcha. What about you, Liz? Skin, loose skin under the arms or under the neck, or
I don't know if I've actually ever seen a leopard gecko with loose skin. I'm not gonna lie. I was kind of thinking originally by that comment they
Uh-oh, I'm
meant
having a
like
hard time
stuck
hearing
shed.
you guys.
All
You
right.
guys see me?
Not yet, but we can
Mhm.
hear you, Thomas, and you'll be back on shortly. All right. Going into something new. Actually, I wanted to talk about. Thomas actually asked me to bring this one up, so let's see where we go with it. Navigating a slow market. Thomas, as everybody knows, he owns a pet store. Um, I believe it's called what? Cold Blooded Exotics in Tucson, right? I think he's actually off screen right now, so we'll get back into him in a minute. I'm sure he's working it out. Yeah, let me see here. I got a note. Cold Blooded Exotics off of Ina and Thornydale in
I've actually been there
Tucson,
before.
Arizona. Have you?
hmm Yeah, I actually got a couple crusted geckos from the shop there.
Did you really?
Yeah,
Okay.
they're really cool.
So I think that's where he's at right now too. Could explain this thing. We're just waiting for Thomas to kick back on. Um, so navigating a slow market. Um, one of the things that I could say towards it would be probably customer service, and I just learned that last week. Um, that was a big deal for Seth when he was on. He was talking about customer service and how he handles things, so that people pay more attention to him as opposed to other breeders. Liz, you do quite a few shows. What would you say
Mhm.
um, are some of the things that you put into navigating a slow market?
I definitely agree with the whole customer service thing because I feel like the more you're willing to like talk to your potential like customers, right? I almost said clients because that's the hairdresser in me. And like answer their questions, right? And like just be more like personable, the more likely they are to like come back. And I've had a lot of people that have reached out to me that were like, "Oh man, like you gave me a lot of really great info at this Reptile Expo, and I'm actually ready to purchase an animal from you." And that's happened a lot since like the last year that I started vending a lot more, which is really cool. I
Yeah.
also try to focus on quality animals. That's something that Thomas brought up earlier, right? And quality genetics too is really important for me. And I'm not like overbreeding. Like if it's something that I can't take care of and provide for until I do find it, it's forever home, then I'm not gonna like just keep breeding like nonstop too.
Yeah. So you're dealing with the majority of obviously pet keepers when you're at the reptile shows. So they're in there to get something really kind of cool.
Mm.
Um, so you'd be educating them from the ground up almost. Do you get a lot of people that come in and they have setups ready, or is that something you have to suggest?
Sometimes the last show I was at, there was actually a little kid that was like, I've done all this research for like the last month, and this is the setup I have. And she showed me a picture, and she's like, this is the type of leopard gecko I want. And I was actually really impressed because I was like, you're pretty little to like actually have done that like research and have this enclosure ready to go for this animal. And she did end up purchasing like one of my favorite geckos off me, which was really cool. But most of the time, I do feel like I have to kind of educate people because they don't realize that they need like the heating, right? And I do have like a really good guide that goes over like every single thing that that leopard gecko will need. And sometimes when I see someone like purchase a gecko from another breeder and that breeder is not really like answering a lot of questions, I actually go up to them. I'm like, hey, here's a guide. Like, if you have any questions, like you can reach out to me. And it's got my info on it and then everything they would possibly need to know about that leopard gecko or like how to care for a leopard gecko.
Gotcha. So that's really good point on there. And so you said he was 10.
Yeah. Yeah. Little kid. Yeah. She was really young and she was
Showed up
so
prepared.
excited.
Oh, she was prepared. Huh?
hmm
That's actually really impressive. What about so for navigating a slow market? How important would you say, Thomas, it is to be data driven if you're gonna, with navigating anything that's going, obviously not like it should at the moment?
I would say that data is important, but at the same time, I think that in a slow market, it's important to be innovative and to try new things, right? So, for example, if you're not selling good on Morph Market and Instagram and your animals are sitting, and you're not vending shows, vend shows. Go and put your face out there, talk to people, trying that avenue. Or if you're vending shows and you're not currently on Morph Market, start posting all your animals to Morph Market and add that as one of your resources. Um, I think it's important, I guess. It's hard to say because as a business person, you know, I think I look at things differently, right? Because yes, our market is slow, but I only have a couple animals left from last season, and I produced over 100. You know what I mean? 100, and I want to say I was at like 160 something babies last season,
Okay.
and I sold pretty much every single one of them. You know what I mean? Or found a home for them in one way or another. So I really think that a big part of it is approach, right? So if you're constantly complaining and posting negativity and saying how crappy our market is on your Instagram stories and things like that, right? That's going to reflect to your customers, and your customers are going to be like, all right, well, I don't want to buy from that guy, so I'm actually not going to be a customer of his. I think that's a huge thing because that's something that I see so many people doing on Facebook, Instagram, things like that. And, I think it's really important to remember that in all aspects of business, whether it's hobby slash side business, whatever, the economy takes a big part in everything, right? Now, right now, people may not be spending $800,000 on a pet like they were during COVID when they were getting all that supplemental income, right? But
Yeah.
at the same time, if you go to a show or you post a few animals on Morph Market that are of a lower value, or that you produced an excess amount of, that you can afford to lower them, 15, 20% than usual, then that's another way to go about it. You know what I mean? And another way to look at it too is, like I said, no matter how anybody wants to look at it, when you become a breeder, at some point it becomes business because, like we're talking about, you have to sell the animals, right?
Yes.
Marketing, that's your hugest thing. You have to market yourself, your animals, where you're going to be. For example, right, like us being on this podcast right now, it's prudent that we're posting it, we're shouting it out, we're talking to people because we need to market it if we want people to watch it, right? It's the same thing with your animals.
I gotcha. Um, yeah, I can agree with that. With the current economy and the way things are going, there's obviously my projects that I want to work on and that I'm trying to further. And I do agree with you that it's a business. I will say that I'm personally not in this with any expectation of making a ton of money. Um, just because like I don't own a pet store, like you do, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to own some version of one later. Um, but when it comes to the geckos, like I have things that I'm passionate about and that I want to see happen, but I also want, like I want to achieve some of the things that I've seen other of those top breeders that are more positive achieve. And so I would almost say like part of navigating a slow market for me would be to pair less animals. I know that for me, it's like a bummer. It's like, man, it would be really cool to be able to offload some of these and get my projects going further, but I might just have to go another year and let some, animals stand down and get them nice and healthy. And that's for the sake of just pushing that project forward another time when I know that the amount of animals that I'll produce will be something that I can find homes for. So that's one of my things. If you're not more, I am business oriented. I own a business in air conditioning, but for the leopard geckos, for me, it's not something that I'm doing that for. So for those who are not, I would say, yeah, just be willing to not pair as many, maybe, and that way, because I mean, it depends on you too. If you have the racks, the space, the money, by all means, have 900 animals and clean all day, every day. I don't know what to tell you.
So I have something to add to that as well, right? Because, like, for example, yes, the leopard geckos, like I said, they are a business in a sense,
Yeah.
but they're not my main business, right? Because I have the pet store. And
Yep.
one thing that I do that I honestly enjoy doing a lot is I like to give geckos away to responsible kids that are deserving of them, right? So sometimes, like before, what I've done is I've put together a kit from my store with like a 20-gallon long enclosure, got the heat mat, the thermostat, pretty much everything that the gecko needs, and picked a random kid that someone on my Facebook nominated, you know what I mean? And I gave him his first gecko with the kit and everything. That's something that us as breeders and other people were able to do. And, it's not only a way for you to get rid of an animal, but it's also a way for you to get someone else into the hobby, to get them interested and excited. And, you never know. You may have given them an animal that time, and 5 years from now, they're going to be hitting you up to buy 6 from you. You know what I mean? Things like that. And another thing, too, is, I think it's really important to breed for yourself, right? So, like, for example, I have probably a rack of, I want to say, like 35 geckos that aren't breeding this year. And it's not because I don't want to, it's partially because of the way of our market, and also because there's certain things that I want to produce first, you know what I mean? That will go hand in hand with other projects down the road. And what I always tell people that are new that are asking me for advice is think of breeding leopard geckos like chess. It can be strategic, and you have to, really think about your next move so that way you're always doing something that's in the best interest of the animals, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We actually have a question, I think, Jen, for Thomas.
Yeah, actually, we do. So Clint would like to know, is having a backup pet shop plan help to sell?
Oh,
Of course, he goes away.
rightly asked. Yeah. We'll have to wait for him to come back on. I know
Yeah, no
he's
worries,
at
no
the pet
worries.
store. He's using his
Hmm.
phone, so he'll be back here in just a second, guys.
All right,
Um,
so we're gonna hide that for a moment there then.
yeah, but no. So while he's off, cultivating a resilient company culture is something that I would say is really good. I know that it's a hobby, but if you're gonna treat it like a business, then it's a company, and every company has a culture, and you either have poison in the well or you don't. Um, so, kind of, how are you as a person? Are you constantly an asshole, like everybody that talks to you, you're better than? Because that's not going to be very resilient for the future. Because the thing about it is like for me, I I don't need anybody's help. So if you
Sorry
were to
about that.
consider that, no, you're good, man. If you consider the fact that, like, in the hobby, I don't really need anybody's help. So if you're constantly displaying just bad behavior and negativity towards others, don't expect me to reach out to you or care who you are, even if you're huge. Um, and then the other thing is, like, because I see how you run your business, I see how you run your mouth, I see how you run your personality, and it's just, I don't need that guy or that girl or that whatever. So cultivating what did I say, a resilient company culture. How do you conduct yourself? It's extremely important. How do you treat others in the hobby? If somebody's doing something wrong, do you call them out the right way? Because there's the right and the wrong way. Do you try to help first, and then when you're done, do you make it very clear, I'm not helping you anymore, and you don't deserve my help, you don't deserve anybody's help, and you should probably stop because you're hurting animals. That's huge. But yeah, so I would say company culture is huge. Even if it's just you, it's still you, and how you conduct yourself. So um, that's one thing that I used in my business. And don't poison your own well. Thomas, we had a question for you. Jen started to read it. I'm gonna have her redo it. I just wanted to fill the time until you got.
Okay, Thomas, Clint would like to know if having a backup pet shop plan helps to sell, or is the overhead of running it balance out your business?
I'm not quite sure that I
Um,
understand that question because I don't market my leopard geckos in my pet store, right? I keep them separate. And Liz is someone that can kind of attest to that because she's been there herself. But I like to keep cold-blooded exotics. The way that I view cold-blooded exotics is a family-friendly, fun environment where everyone and their kids can come and hold animals and engage with them. You can call us to do your birthday party, things like that, right? And Tucson's Finest Leos isn't really about that, right? Because I don't allow people to come to my house and tour my animals, right? Unless you're someone like Liz or like Joe or you, Jen, someone that I'm close with that I trust and, would consider a friend, right? And it's nothing personal, but, like I said, it's my home at the end of the day, not my brick and mortar store. You know what I mean? Um, and that's where I would say I kind of draw the line. Now, as far as selling animals goes, from Tucson's Finest Leos in my pet store, I definitely have brought babies down there, but it'll be test pairing stuff, right? So, like for example, there was one year that I was testing a couple girls for Eclipse, and I didn't feel comfortable selling those babies on Morph Market because I couldn't guarantee that they were Eclipse free or not, And I ended up bringing them to the pet store and selling them for $49.99, right? And when I do that, I don't in turn pocket that money and give it to Tucson's Finest Leos, right? So the way I see it is like it's Tucson's Finest Leos giving cold-blooded exotics those animals. You know what I mean?
Okay. So yeah, it would just be two separate things that you're paying attention to and doing that way.
Exactly.
I like it, man. Thank you for saying that I'd be welcome at your house. I'll be over sometime later today. Um, Liz is coming too. She's got a long drive.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
I'll be there.
we'll
I'll
have
see
a
you guys in
barbecue.
15 hours.
15,
I think I'd
Jen's
have a
got to
pretty long
fly.
one
be there
too,
in 2 hours.
right? Yes,
Yep.
Thomas, I'd fly. I'm not driving.
Actually, me and Thomas actually do have to meet up soon to swap some animals around.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys saw the animal that Thomas posted on Morph Market. Thomas, do you mind if I show it?
I
Go for
did.
it.
Okay. Sorry, I thought it's not like I'm bragging on myself here. So, yeah, right. So, no, that's not gonna be it. Here's his thing. I always click on the wrong thing first, right? So I think this is it. Everybody remember that guy? Sold. I had to have it. Yeah. So, and obviously, there is good customer service behind it because you never mention cold-blooded exotics. I never hear you talk about it. Probably because I'm not one of your brick and mortar friends or colleagues, but I am one of your gecko colleagues. So when we talk geckos, I can tell that you're not blending the two, which is actually really cool. I just wanted to real quick brag to everybody. That's mine. That's coming to my facility to work with my stuff next year, and I actually know right where he's going. His name is Bossman. He's got a name, and he's pretty legitimate. And you can already see the green's about to come in. And even though I really appreciate you, Thomas, I think you're kind of silly for selling that one. So,
Yes, he sends me a text and he's like, "Did you see what Thomas posted?"
yeah.
He's like, "You got to check it out." And so I knew he was getting it, so I'm not surprised.
Oh, dude, I've been looking at it, and
He's
I
like a
usually
kid in a
will.
candy store.
I'll let people have time to buy it. I know he's here. He's trying to make a little cash. He's got to feed his animals. And if not, it's like, can we trade? Can we this? Can we buy it? And I've bought plenty of animals from Thomas over the last 2 years. So, but yeah, no, I
Yeah,
was super
I've
excited for that one. When you told me you wanted to trade me for that cipher that I have, I didn't even, I was like, yep, I hope I didn't need that. Yeah. I
Yeah,
said
he's
yes.
like, he calls me. He's like, "Jen, you want to know what I just did?" I was like, what did you do, Joe?
Yeah, no, that's I always say like I did a thing. That's like my quote. I did a
Yeah,
thing.
I did a thing. I did a thing. It's
Yeah,
like, okay,
yeah.
what thing did you do this time? So he's always doing a thing.
Well, and then if I go to Tucson, I get to eat at my favorite sushi place, so that's cool. I'll be probably down there to
That's
get.
right. We're getting lunch.
Yep. You got to remind me, man. Do you eat sushi?
Well,
Yep.
What about you, Liz? Do you eat
Yep.
sushi?
You got. Yeah. Just let me know, man, because I'm all about it. I'm leaving the shop and I'm going and I'm stuffing my face.
It's awesome. Liz, do you eat any of that? Any seafood?
I do like seafood, but I don't like raw fish. And I mean, I don't really like fish. I like shellfish. So I'll eat like crab and lobster and shrimp. So I'll do like a deep fried shrimp roll with cream cheese, but I don't eat like land meat either. So yeah,
You don't eat
fun
land
fact.
meat?
Yeah, I don't eat like chicken or steak or yeah, any
You
animal
know,
other than shellfish.
my sister said something to me. My friend, sorry, my friend Lisa in the comments, she said, I heard sushi. Um, so my sister will say something to me that, and then I started hearing other people say it. And she's like, no, I don't want wings. I don't eat chicken on a bone. And I'm like, all chicken is chicken from a bone.
Mhm.
So why don't you eat land meat? You don't have to answer that.
Uh,
It has nothing to
I
do.
I honestly, like, I don't know if you guys could tell this about me, but I really love animals. And so
Yeah.
I feel really guilty eating them. And, like, even at my salon, like, I'm very cruelty free. I don't use anything that tests on animals. So
Okay.
it's something I kind of like pride myself in. Like, if you guys ever go to my hair page, it says, like, cruelty free hairstylist. So I
Mhm.
just feel like if I did eat meat, I would be hypocritical. So yeah, I don't occasionally I'll eat some shrimp or some crab. I love crab, but it's not like I'm just going out every single day of my life to like eat them. So
I gotcha. There's a lot of people out there that feel that way, just like you. I think it's definitely if your psyche works better that way, then do your thing.
mm,
Um, because
for
you,
sure.
you're going to feel guilty and not be able to sleep at night.
yeah.
Some people can sell cars, and other people can't sleep when they do.
Yep.
Um, this one it's one for everybody, and I'll actually call you guys out individually on this one. I am going to start with Thomas, and then I'll just do it now. We'll go with Thomas, then Jen, then Liz, and maybe I'll have something to say unless you guys say it all. This is a phrase I kind of came up with myself, and it has to do with pricing on an animal while navigating a slow market. Um, how do you guys feel when it comes to holding the line on a line? When it comes to pricing. So, like when you see, somebody that is no better than a jobber breeder, um, posting all the stuff you work really hard with for like $50, what kind of a mentality does that put you in, and how do you handle it, Thomas? I think your
Can't
mic is
hear
out.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
So we're gonna go ahead and have you adjust your mic, buddy, and we'll go with Liz. Sorry.
Me first. Okay. So I mean, I I
Sorry,
have
Liz.
been. It's okay. I have been at shows before where I do see like other breeders that have like leopard geckos listed for like $50, and I mean it is kind of hard because I feel like when you see people like that, they're bringing down like the value of leopard geckos. And I try to charge my stuff fairly. And I've even asked Thomas before to kind of help me like pick prices for things. But I mean, I don't really sell something for $50 unless it's like a pet quality. And at that point, sometimes I even try to find a home for it for free. But I do feel like people like that are kind of like hurting our market for sure.
Okay. I don't know if Thomas's mic is back on yet. Are you back on, bud? Mm-mm.
No.
All right. You might have to bounce out and back in. It might just need you to bounce out and back in. Um, how about you, Jen? Holding the line on a line that you're working on.
Well, I think when people are doing it like that and they're underpricing way down like that. I think it's disrespectful. I think it's kind of, disrespectful to people who have been working on it a long time. Me personally, I don't feel like I can charge what breeders who have been out there forever can charge, but I also wouldn't sell something way under what those breeders who've been working on that line or with that line, however you want to phrase it, for a long time. So,
I feel the same way. I definitely try not to like overcharge because I feel like it has a lot to do with like your reputation and how long you've been like breeding.
That's a good point. I will personally, just till Thomas gets back. Actually, there he is, and we can hear
oh,
you,
we can
buddy.
hear you.
So,
Yay!
holding the line on a line when it comes to pricing, man. Let's have you go, and then I'll chime in. How do you feel
Can you
about
hear me now?
pricing? Yeah,
Yes.
we can hear you now, buddy. Um, how do you feel about pricing, public pricing, and things like that, and holding your, holding down the price for a specific line you're working really hard on?
Are you talking to me or the girls?
Yeah, your turn, man.
We already
Oh, okay,
answered.
okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I think your login took longer than whatever. I don't think you could hear me.
Right? So, honestly, it's pretty disheartening to see stuff like that. And one thing that has bothered me a little bit recently that I've noticed on Morph Market, and being that I own a pet store, I know exactly where these animals come from because they're on the same wholesale lists that I receive. But
Yep.
there's people going on Morph Market buying wholesale geckos from Reptiles by Mac or Texas Reptiles International or Strictly Reptiles, and they're flipping them on Morph Market for 150, 175 bucks, and they're mislabeling them. And what's even crazier is you go to the page and they're selling. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it bothers me because not only is it similar to how Jenn was saying when she first started, it's misleading and it's not cool to do to aspiring breeders and people that want to start, but it also devalues other people working with the line. And in that instance, like I said, that person's mislabeling animals, so it doesn't really apply to that. But like, for example, when you see something that one of us posts for $600-700, and that's what the going rate for them is, posted for $100, it's like, man,
Yeah.
how does that make my stuff look? And truthfully, it makes the people that do hold the line, like you're saying, it makes us look like we're ripping other people off for those newcomers, right?
Yeah.
And I think not only for the sake of like reputation, but I think it's important to be firm on that type of thing because the reason that that price is what it is at is because the creator of whatever that morph is decided that that's where they wanted that market to start. That was the level they wanted it to be at. And that also means that that's what they valued that line at, you know what I mean? And I feel like it's disrespectful in a way to the creator of the morph or whatever to be devaluing something from their lineage so much.
I can agree to that. Another point that I'd make is that if you really want to work with a specific morph and everything you see out there is priced a specific way, and you notice there's like 7 breeders that are all pretty comparable in pricing, and it's like, oh, I just found the morph right over here and it's $49. Awesome. I'm going to get that animal. Um, the truth is no, you're not, if you acquired
See,
something that is standard high priced and you got it for $50, you're not working with that animal. Somebody lied to you. Somebody fooled you, and there's a lot of people that are doing that. So I'd almost say that you really ought to know. That goes back to our earlier point. Know who you're buying from. Check into them. Ask 5 people about everybody. Before you ever
see, and
find out about me. So
it's funny you say that because
Oh no.
Funny.
I want to say though, it kind of goes to that old saying, if it, looks
We
like it's
still
too good
there?
to be true, it
You are,
probably
Thomas.
is.
Your screen will be back on in just a minute, man. Yeah, if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Hmm.
And then,
If it looks too good, well, however you want to say it.
yeah, I like what Thomas brought up about the creator of the line.
Hmm.
I actually could tie what Thomas and what Jenn said. In a sense, where Jenn said, well, Thomas first said, obviously show respect to the creator, but then she said, I don't feel like as a newer breeder that I belong in that price bracket, and that makes sense to me. I can totally understand how you'd feel like that. And I feel that way a lot of times. 5 years going on 6 in, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not. If I have a Matt Baronic animal, I'm not Matt Baronic, and if he's got his animal priced way high, I don't want to price mine so that nobody goes to him, but at the same time, I'm definitely not him. So I'll keep the price higher and hold that line. And to be
Hmm.
perfectly honest with you, one of the things that you'll see me do often if you reach out to me is make a deal with you. The price tag is there and it's listed there, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to have a conversation and sell it for a lot less. Um, and if I did do that, it's nothing personal to the creator, and visibly online, I'm doing everything I can to hold the line for them. Show that level of respect, but also within my specific area. Um, and one of the biggest things is, kind of willingness to label the animal correctly so people know what you're working with. But that too good to be true thing, definitely. Has anybody been, would you say, affected by somebody not respecting the pricing lines, or have you known anybody
Can
that's
I
been?
add just something you were saying real quick before we move on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So, you know, recently, or not necessarily recently, but I would say over the course of the last year, I've had so many people that, I've talked to, answered questions, and I would say I consider friends in the hobby, you know what I mean? Reach out to me and they'll tell me, they're like, man, I really want like this gecko that you work with, blah, blah, blah. But I bought this one because this is what I could afford, and there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. But then later they will go back and they'll tell me, but I'm having this issue with it, or this, and this. And I think that goes back to what we were talking about initially. Advice to new breeders is, like I was saying, when you're investing in animals, you're investing in yourself and in your reputation and your name. So it's important to make sure not to cheat yourself and cheap out on certain things, And I would say I'm a great example for anybody that thinks that they can't do it, to tell them that they can. Because when I first started heavily investing into the leopard geckos, I was making like $350 a week, working a minimum wage pet store job, you know what I mean? Just hustling, doing everything I could. And I was able to work out payment plans with breeders, things like that. And, get myself to where I needed to be. And it wasn't easy by any means, for sure, but I was able to do it. And I know if I was able to, you know, live and invest in what I was investing, then we all should be able to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can agree with that. Does anybody else have anything they want to kind of throw in there on holding the line on pricing, or anybody have a disagreement there, or like another, opposite kind of a opinion that they'd like to discuss about it?
Nope,
I'll take that
not
as a
me.
huge no. So, one of the things that I was hoping to do on here today, and I know there's a couple of people that are hanging out in the comments who agree with me, is I wanted to peer pressure Thomas into creating a name for a line of animals that he's been working on for such a long time. Um, I'm not going to call out the animals, and I'm definitely not going to try to name it for him, but My question is, when does a line, even if you start from somewhere, become another line? And so, and when does it become your line? When do you stand on your own two legs, and when is it something you're doing? Is it when it looks different um, than any of the other animals in that line? Um, and is it when somebody else tells you it's okay for you to be the big guy? Um, and I'll start by saying I feel like I'll go ahead and say the really really big bad guy thing, and it might not even necessarily be my opinion. Let's just get the conversation going. Um, as soon as you cross somebody's line into something else, you're not working with that line anymore. You're working with part of it. Okay. Now you're not ready to name a line. I'd say that too, but you are working with a crossed animal. Somebody else crossed animals to create a morph. And once they have done it, depending on if they stopped and started line breeding or however that worked out, because they wanted to keep a specific look, I would say the second you pair it to something that's, if you don't have two of that person's animals and you're not just pairing those together, you're doing something else. So who wants to disagree with me on that? At least everybody should, actually. So um, Liz, let's call you out. Thomas is off the screen again. So when does a line, in your opinion, become a new line?
Ooh. I don't know. I guess I feel like when you start breeding it to something different, it's a new line. But I also feel like if you're trying to like establish your own line and breed your own animal, it could take like a couple years of breeding like those animals together and like to like establish your own line as well.
Yeah. Jen, when would you say that a new line becomes a new line?
I do not feel I am qualified to speak on that, sir.
That's what I should have said.
I told her I was going to do that anyway, but all right, Thomas, you buddy. When is a new line? You're the one I'm calling out. When is a new line a new line? I'll be right back. I think he's having that trouble with the thing again.
Yeah,
So
he's coming and
yeah,
going.
his connection. All right, now I can hear you, Thomas. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, buddy?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Awesome. When is a new line? When does a new line become a new line? Nope, not gonna happen, huh? All right. Well, we'll get him back in as soon as he's going. I'm gonna actually let him take a minute to fix it. Um, MPA says that you gave a good answer, Jennifer. That's his way of talking major smack and saying that you definitely should not be commenting. How do you feel about that? His name is
I
Michael.
don't I don't disagree. I don't feel that I'm qualified to answer that. So that's why I said what I said.
Yeah, I'm totally just kidding, Michael.
Oh my goodness. But thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, yeah. So like I'll give you an example. If you ever go and you look at just different pages where people are telling you how a specific morph was created, um, like red. We'll go with red diamond, right? Red diamond started out in Italy. It was passed between two breeders, and then it ended up in America, and it's a super cool animal. Um, I don't know. I just kind of feel like the second you pair it out to anything else, it's not really a red diamond anymore. It's a red diamond cross. And so it's not a bad thing that it's a red diamond cross. It's definitely not a bad thing to work with it. I just feel like you're on to something else. I don't feel like you're ready to name it or call it something else yet, but it's definitely something different. My whole plan for that was to call Thomas out. He's got to name a line, and obviously he's having connectivity issues, but
And you're
we'll
taking too long.
yeah, in a
We
sense.
lose him before you can get it all out.
I know. I
That's
know.
not your fault though. That's his stuff. That's his stuff.
Yeah, he's actually texting me right now. See
Yeah.
if I can FaceTime him and we'll get him to answer. But yeah, he's got a really cool line of animals that he's gotten from a lot of different places. He's talked to me a little bit about them, and the majority of them are all really like quality breeders. And so it's just like some of the I don't know some of the really like the best that are out there. And he spent quite a bit of his money on them, and I just feel like at a certain point, you are Scott has one. At a certain point, you gotta know that you're working on something new, and where are you going with it. But Scott says we should just let John Scarborough set the guidelines. Honestly, me and him have never like physically spoken. We probably will soon, but I love that guy. He everything he's ever said to me has been gold, and I don't think he even knows that. I don't think he knows like just how much it goes into. But Thomas, can you hear me? Are you going to be here for a minute?
I hope so.
Yeah. um. So when does a new line become a new line? Try.
I would say a new line becomes a new line when you're working on something that's unique. It looks different from other things out there that make it unique and identifiable. And I would say, when you're a good it really just depends because some stuff, for example, it really depends on if you're working with polygenic line bred crosses, if you're line breeding, or if
Yep.
it's with recessive stuff. Because if you're the first person in the world to create a world's first recessive and you've only been working on it 2 years, you can still name that line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I guess it really just depends on what you're working on.
Okay. So when does your line that is different than anybody else's line um, become a new line with a name? I feel like that was the point of me asking.
Like, are you talking mine specifically?
Just yeah, any line that you're working with that we both know looks different than a lot of others. Um,
Um, you know, I feel like I'm able to name it right now, but one, I want to come up with a name that is very unique and deserving for that line, you know what I mean?
yep.
And, you know, two, I want I want it to be in a way because you're not the first person that's told me that my stuff looks different and unique in its own, and that it's very obvious where animals from me come from, right?
Yep.
But I also want to come up with a name for it too that kind of, not only describes the animal in the name, but also something that you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, that's this. You know what I mean? That's from Thomas.
Yeah.
And I think I've achieved that already as far as the look goes. Now I just need to figure out a cool enough name, I guess.
So here's one thing I wanted to show you guys. I'm going to switch screens. This is something that if you ever go to geckoboa.com, I'm going to highlight this section right here and I'm going to read it to everybody so they can kind of see how I understand what I'm reading here. Um, a red diamond. Okay. This is a tremper animal. And as it's listed right here on what it is, and you can find it in other places as well, like this. It's a tangerine tremper that originates from Italian breeder Carlo Maia and Luca Gonzini. So it says here Carlo originally bred an electric bandit cross to an ultimate gecko line tangerine, white and yellow. And from that, he produced a nice striped gecko from the pairing. I'm assuming that means that he used said nice striped gecko. It says he then paired her, obviously, yeah, so I'm right, to a blood sunglow het raptor from JMG. At this time, he was downsizing, blah, blah, blah. And then um, it says Luca got the project and line bred them to what they are now. So that's a line that, obviously was worked on that a lot of people really love. And man, they are some flashy looking animals. They're really great. But it looked like two generations, and then maybe some line breeding, so possibly a couple more. Um, the line breeding, we don't know how long that took. I don't know when it got to the States. I do know kind of where it originated in the States, but yeah, so to know it was basically the way that that's described is the Tremper Tangerine. Um, yeah, Electric Bandit. That's such a strange one for me. Crossed into an ultimate gecko line tangerine, white and yellow, producing a nice striped gecko. So, like, one of the animals that it produced was a nice striped animal. We seem to be having technical difficulties with people being on right now, but um, it's kind of crazy. I wonder, originally what was produced and how long that came out. I think Jenn, you kind of bounced out, but anyway, there you are.
I was gonna say it never showed me kicked out on my end.
Oh, so, but yeah, so that's a line. All right, we've got a lot of in and out. Thomas is having a little bit of trouble here. So I would say I'm going to go ahead and say this real quick because I get this every night. I don't know if any of you do, but if you do, somebody say something. Does anybody know who Aspen is? So Aspen is this gentleman here. I don't know if you can see my phone, but every single night he goes to bed and he says good night. Good night, Aspen. Um, it's such a funny thing. Clint wants us to show Clint. I don't think that the animal buddy is ready. Thomas, like he said, he's got to come up with something really cool that he wants to call it. But and also one thing I would say, Thomas, too, is probably write up like a really nice thing showing where, like the journey that you got to there and some of the crossing you did with it. Just a really good, and then maybe plug the people who helped get you there, where you got the animals, where they got the animals, because I have some animals from you, and I researched those back about 4 or 5 different breeders, and it's because I was capable of it. You know what I mean? And so that's what gave me the idea. Not I don't even know if it gave you the idea, but it gave me the idea that you should be naming something at this point. And you don't have to feel the way that I feel about it. I just know what I'm working with, and to me, the animal that I have, I call it what you call it, but it's a Thomas animal. It's from Tucson's finest Leos. And the identifier in my, I have Husbandry Pro. I use identifiers. Like my daughter uses names. My identifier is TF for, Tucson's finest. And it's because I don't consider it, the morph that it originally came from. And I want to know when I'm working with that animal that it's something that's going to visually look the way that I expect it to look when I get the animal from you. And that's just my opinion. So you know what I mean? So I even have the identifier listed differently. Does that make sense? Or,
Definitely. Definitely. And, to answer Clint's question too, it's definitely something that everybody has already seen before and they may not have even realized it.
yeah.
But, like Joe said, I just want to come up with a name that not only gives the animal credit for what it is, but also, like I said, is a proper name. And then also, like Joe said, I really need to sit down and type something out that kind of, like he was explains like the journey of how I got to it, because Joe has done that research, and he could, if Joe was me, Joe could do it on the right now, you know what I mean? And I've done the research as well, but I haven't actually written anything out and put it into a formal like section of words that I'm ready for the public to read, I guess. So that's something that I'll definitely be working on after, this conversation for sure. And I guess you guys can maybe expect it by the end of the year.
That's awesome. We have a time frame. Everybody hear that promise that Thomas made?
I did.
Everybody
The
knows
Thomas
that
promise.
promise and Thomas rhymes, so don't forget that he said by the end of 2024, he's going to have a name and a line and everything written up, or Liz is going to unfriend him from Facebook. So that checks out. Going from there. No, yeah, man. I actually 100% am in your corner there, and I know I'm pushing you to do it. I'm not trying to push or anything, but I just really believe in when I see something special and I see something that's 5 years down the road, and it definitely just has a slight different variation in how it looks, um and I know from, what am I, on my third year, so this year I haven't seen yet, but 2 years of working with a specific set of animals that I got from you, they don't look, none of the babies come out looking like anything else. Every single baby that I've had, one you could say is a jungle animal, but I almost don't even feel comfortable using that term. The coloration's all over the place. The setup is all over the place, and actually I'm not just going to say that, and I don't want to. I'm going to show one because I really want to kind of, without overdoing it, I want to show people what I'm talking about. So give me a second here to look it up. My first season working with one of these animals I was sitting here like, this is not like anything that anyone else is working with. There we go. I'm going to pull that up there, but I also want to try to shrink it down. Anyway, hopefully we got Jenn on the screen, and we do. Thomas, are you still there? He bounced off. All right, I'll wait for him to get back. There he goes. All right. All right, Thomas. I'll wait for you to hop back on, man. But yeah, I do want to, show everybody what, exactly we're working with here. And this could have something to do with how I paired the animal. Are you able to hear me, Thomas?
I can't hear.
I can't see you, buddy, but I can hear you. I'm going to switch over to that screen and just wait for you to bounce on, but hopefully it brings you on here. So, all right. So with this one here, let's see, this animal, where is this guy? All right. So this animal here was paired to one that I was in I wouldn't call it a bidding war. I just kind of got there first. And the female that I was interested in, I know Matt was interested in as well, to the point where he and I had never at this, years ago, said two words to each other. And he reached out and said, make sure you pair this to this and test it this way. So he actually had some plans for the mom as well. But the second year, I paired the male that I got from Thomas to other females. And similarly throughout animals that look like this. Now, this one up here on the top is fresh out of the egg. I mean, you're talking like maybe a couple of days old. And even fresh out of the egg here, a couple days old, just, I mean, look at the contrast, look at the coloration, and look at how that animal is. You want to call it a jungle pattern. I knew I was looking at something that was slightly different. And then I have a picture of it a little bit older down here. And this right here is what you're used to seeing coloration wise at that young age from Thomas's animals. It's definitely what I just traded with him, similarly to that. But I did pair it to a specific female, but like I said, second year, I got similar stuff. So that's, in my opinion, it's coming from dad because second year was obviously multiple females. And the babies have it all in common. So I personally felt like I was seeing something that was new, something that was a little bit different. Um, and it's been about 3 good years. I'll let you know what happens this year with some of his offspring. But what do you think of this animal right here, Thomas? Look at the back.
That one's really cool, and I think I remember when you posted that one. What it reminded me of. When I was a little kid, I used to have a monster truck that had like these flames on it, and they
Yeah,
were like the like crazy, and that's
yeah.
what it kind of reminded me of. And I think that I actually have the brother of that one too, or I think I got the clutch mate from that one from you.
It's actually one of you do. That's one of Royal's kids, and I obviously will never get rid of it because of, to me, being living in Arizona, this looks like Tucson city graffiti. Um, Coming off the back there, just like somebody had some wild, crazy, like like they started drawing on an animal and maybe they didn't finish. And then as it comes down and it gets a little older, you can see that that coloration stuck. You know, so I don't know. It's pretty legit. It looks like graffiti to me. It looks like art. Um,
Definitely.
and the male that I have here, he actually has yet to be paired. I'm not ready to work with it yet. I want to make sure that I know right where I'm going to go with it before I do. But I still have him. So, and
Heck yeah.
he's as healthy as can be. But yeah, just speaking to the quality, like I said, man, 2 years running, and all of the offspring kind of look a lot like that right there. And doesn't matter which female I pair it to, that never matters. It literally, I think, obviously Royal is who's producing this sort of variation, this sort of, I guess you can call that a jungle pattern, right?
Definitely.
So, but yeah, it's just an example of why I'm talking about what I'm talking about. I obviously saw this years ago, but it's been nothing but some of the same, if not better, for years and years now. So I think you're there. I like the word graffiti. Should be thinking about that.
I like what Scott said. He just said it reminded him of a lava lamp, and he's right. Like the way that the goo like bubbles
Yeah,
up and stuff in the lava lamp.
that's actually true. Yep, that's a good one. I didn't think of that. Reminds me of a lava lamp. Yeah, yep. I should probably try to get some updated photos. It definitely has a 2-year-old adult. Doesn't look like this anymore, but um, it doesn't look bad either. I just saw him today. I obviously you peek in on your animals all the time, and he's one of them that I always pick up and hold. So, um, but yeah, man. Let me know if you want some help. I'll help you write it up or name it or whatever. We'll get it on there.
Heck yeah.
All right. So we're actually coming up on 2 hours, guys. I was going to see if anybody had anything they wanted to go over. Uh, we can do that in just a second. Obviously, I want to plug you guys. Go on Instagram, go on Morph Market, find Lizzie's Leos, give her a follow. Follow her store, show her some support. Do the same for Thomas, Jenn. You got Tucson's finest Leos in the top right corner, guys. And then Surfside Geckos, Jen's my my co-host, my partner. She helps me out with everything, keeps me on track. I get little side messages from her all the time. Talking. Thank you for that,
Sorry.
Jen. I really appreciate you.
No problem.
But yeah, and if you're in the Tucson area, make sure that you go and you visit Cold Blooded Exotics. Thomas works with a lot more than just leopard geckos, and he can show you what he's got there. It's on Ina and Thornydale, right?
Yes, sir.
Right on. If there's anything else you guys want to bring up, I always ask anybody, bring it on up right now, and let's talk about it.
We need to get one of those things where it's like bum 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 bum.
So, like
Don't
Jeopardy.
everybody talk at the same time.
I want to call Jen out for anything she's done wrong in the last week, if you want to. So, oh, I know. We can do this quick. Literature. So we meant to discuss this. Thomas, you brought up a book that you were reading, and I went and grabbed it so that I could, throw it down. I've read it a long time ago, but I couldn't find it, so I bought a new one. This is that second edition book, so I'll have this probably read by morning. But you wanted to make a point to the book. What was your point?
Yeah, so when we were talking about the live and topics and stuff, you kind of gave me some homework. And one thing that I
No. Damn.
love to do is I love to
Come on.
a ton in the living room, like under the coffee table, things like that, right? And I was sitting in my living room one morning and I was thinking, like, what can I do that's going to be unique, right? So I went and I grabbed one of my books and I was like, you know what? I haven't read this book in a very long time, so I'm going to read it front to back. And over the next 3 days, I read the book front to back. And, one thing that I noticed about it is there's a lot of information in there that would be considered nowadays controversial, right? And, it's important to remember that the book, if you look at who the people that authored it are, they're coming from a different generation than we are as breeders. And things back then may have been more acceptable than they are now, right? So, one thing that I wanted to point out is we don't have any type of current literature in the form of a book that is out there for people to read. And I think it would be very important. I'm not necessarily saying that I'm going to be the person to write the book, and I'm not saying that you should be, but I think it's important that there is a book out there with a lot more current information for these new and aspiring breeders, because how my interest in these books started was when I was a kid, and when I got my first leopard gecko, they had the book for sale right there, and it was kind of one of those hand-in-hand purchases, right? And for many people, I think that obviously, in today's world, they are going to go on the internet, but there's still tons of people out there that love to read a good old fashioned book, right? And I think it's something that us as this, generation of breeders could for sure work on.
I like that. I wonder, because a lot of them are collaborative anyways. What if you had a multi-collaborative project going on, and you include the people you think would be best for it? Because anybody can
Right?
just write their own book. You can, no reason you can't. I'd love, if you called on me, I'd help. Throw me a subject, and I'll do everything I can. But also, there's
Definitely.
other people that you would benefit from collaborating with, and deciding on subjects and certain things like that. Because I know that one of the things you did bring up here was the 10-gallon tank thing, and I agree with you. That's too small. And it's definitely written in there as standard, and I don't think that's standard anymore. So that was one of them. So that's a really good point. I don't know if I could author a whole book. I could write a chapter in one though.
Right.
You want. Have you ever thought about putting that together and making Liz write it all for you, or?
I have thought
I think I'm
about
a quiet
doing
person.
it.
Sorry, go ahead.
And like you said, it's something that I don't think any one person can do, right? Because at the end of the day, when it comes to reptile keeping, a lot of it is opinion based and point of view based, right? So,
Yeah,
I think it's important, like how I always say, to have an open mind, and like how you said, to call on these different people to, ask for different advice, right? So, like, for example, you might know more about a certain topic than I would, and I'm going to be like how you said, hey Joe, do you want to tackle this topic in a book, right?
yeah.
And you'll be like, sure, whatever, whatever. So I do think, like how you said, that it is very important that multiple people write it. And one thing that I think is important in all reptile books is that you have a vet go over it. You know what I mean? Because a vet, at the end of the day, they may not know absolutely everything, but they're also going to be able to tell you, yes, this, and this, and they can put their input in different places as well.
So you want a vet to vet your book or to vet your subject. No, that's pun intended, right? That's a good point. The other thing is being able to stand on your own 2 feet and say, "Hey, this is what I think. It's what I've researched. It's what I am putting out there for others to read, and I'm definitely going to publish this. It's going to have my name on it for time and all eternity. You'll be able to buy it on Amazon and other places, and I'm okay with it. Your voice is everybody's voice is important, and if it's not, people won't listen to it, and they'll have their opinions about it. No matter what you do, there's going to be positivity and negativity. So you just have to be able to be strong enough to roll with that. Or, I'd say maybe don't participate. If I wrote something and people had a problem with it, that's fine. You know what I mean? I'd have that conversation. But at the same time, like, doesn't mean I'd change my mind necessarily. I uh, I like that idea, man. If you end up doing something like that, and you called on me, I'd love to help. So I wanted to thank everybody that obviously came in on the chats. Lisa, yeah, reach out to me and I'd be fine with the chat. Not sure what that's about, but definitely. Or no,
I
I'm
don't
sorry.
think that one's
That's not Lisa.
Lisa.
That's Sarah
That's
and
Sarah.
Kyle. Sorry, it's getting
Yeah,
late.
Sarah and Kyle.
But I wanted to say thank you to them. We got Reese in the chat still. Scott, thank you for your compliment on my business name. I did see it. Wildcard Tangerine. I have a name for one, but also I'm not really line breeding a tangerine. I have a name I choose, but there's no reason to at this point. There's plenty of tangerines out there. Um, doesn't mean there won't be a wild card gecko. Michael, thank you. I should probably. I'm going to take a stab. Clint, I know Clint's here. Thank you, Clint. Guillermo, Gauge Boy, Guillermo. If I got your name wrong, you should talk shit in the comments and tell me I did that. Uh,
Let him know all about it.
Yeah, I don't know the name of the guy or girl from Lucid Arboreals, but thank you. ENKI is here. Just thank you guys for coming on and spending some time with us. Steve from SC Reptiles is here. I really appreciate all of you guys for watching when you do. And so many people watch these later. I get comments about them all the time. So even though they're not here when they're live, it's awesome to know that people watch them after the fact. They watch the whole thing. So thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Liz, for coming back on after the technical difficulties. It took us a month, but I'd love to have both of you on again. And pretty soon, if I can get Thomas to keep his promise, his Thomas promise, we'll do a spotlight session in the future. Animal, buddy. So,
Heck yeah.
all right. With that, if you guys just hold tight for a second, I'm going to go ahead and end the live. But thank you guys in the comments. I got a thumbs up from Gage, so I must have remembered his name correctly. I do my best. So thank you, everybody, and everybody have a good Friday night.
Have a good night, guys.
Bye, guys. Later.
Bye.